the past few days, all across the Kingdom of Lothric, players have been flocking to the Kiln of the First Flame. With the release of the Ring City expansion, a new bonfire has appeared, taking players to the Dreg Heap and the start of new adventures. I was lucky enough to play through the DLC a few days early, and I've played through the whole thing from start to finish. Personally, this has been my favourite expansion yet, and it's introduced my new favourite covenant, Spears of the Church. This covenant grants you the ability to invade other players as a boss. Within the context of the world, whenever a player trespasses in this church, the Judicator will summon loyal spirits from the Spears of the Church covenant to eliminate them. Now there's a lot of surprising mechanics at play here. One thing I figured out quite quickly is that this is not a duel, you are summoned as a boss, and as such you are more powerful than normal. But before we look at that, joining this covenant is very difficult. To access it, you need to defeat an extremely difficult optional boss. I won't reveal the name or show any footage here because I only want to focus primarily on this boss invasion covenant for today. But once you defeat it, you gain the covenant item, which you equip in the inventory like normal, and as you can read, you are summoned automatically to protect the church against trespassers. I was one of the first people to access the covenant since I finished the DLC early, and so on release day, I was invading constantly because there were so many people rushing through. I think I did my church protecting duty quite well, because if there's no real player to invade you at the time, you just get an NPC boss, which, isn't really as fun to fight. If you've played the previous Souls games, you'll remember the Old Monk and Mirror Knight bosses. Those allowed you to be summoned into the boss fight as an invader, but I think they're both inferior to this new one. For example, trying to invade into the Mirror Knight fight was clunky and obscure. You had to put your red sign down in certain places and keep replacing it every 10 seconds and weird things like that. It felt a bit accidental. This, on the other hand, is actually implemented as a covenant and is therefore much more balanced. You become the main threat, assisted by a few weaker Painting Guardian NPCs. In terms of what benefits the Invader has, the obvious one that you can see right now is yes, you will probably have a Painting Guardian NPC summoned alongside you, at least one, and they deal decent damage. They use the new Church Guardian Shiv item, which is a thrown sort of knife, can be thrown quite rapidly, but most notably they have group heal miracles. Now that's extremely important because in this fight, the Invader cannot heal using Estus at all. You remember earlier I said you become the boss. You actually do. Once you invade, the main boss health bar along the bottom of the screen represents your health bar. Once the host damages you enough to get you below half health, another NPC Guardian is always summoned, as far as I can tell, and the trigger for this is when the Judicator dialogue says, "Make haste." Okay, so you might be thinking, well, this seems like it would be unfair. How is the Invader ever going to win, since they can't heal, and if there's a group co-oping, which there often is, they'll destroy you. I mean, this is supposed to be a boss fight, supposed to be fairly challenging, and especially since the NPC Painting Guardians aren't too threatening, to be honest. First of all, you definitely have higher defense. I'm not sure what changes exactly, or the percentages or anything like that. We'll have to wait till the community starts testing these things, but you have a higher defense. You might even have more poise, or maybe hyper armor. It felt a bit like that to me anyway. Maybe even a slight damage increase. Obviously I'm not too sure about the specifics. The DLC just came out and this is anecdotal. I'm just trying to remember how I felt during the fights, but for absolute certain you do have a higher defense than normal, which is actually cool. It does just mean that you don't get thrown around and three-shot by a gank squad, do you know what I mean? Although co-op groups are still tough, do not get me wrong. At one point I went toe-to-toe with 4 people, and I have to say it was so exciting. It's still extremely hard, yet I actually felt slightly more on a level playing field with my extra defense and the extra bonuses I had. By the end I actually managed to combo one of the summons, absolutely flattened him, but then I got roasted by the other 3. And that's it, they beat the boss. I was so hyped about that fight. The adrenaline was high. I sent them a quick message congratulating them, saying, "Good game," and I love how they all respond with happy emojis and stuff. Everyone's having a good time with it, except Dieselfunk. He indeed did perish. Interestingly, it seems like you can have more than one Spears of the Church member be summoned in. I invaded a single host who was already battling one of the NPC guardians, then behind me a second Covenant member was summoned in, so 2 bosses. I hadn't seen this up until that point. I got curious because I could actually lock on to him, and don't judge me, of course I attacked him, just to see if I could, to be completely honest with you. Turns out, yes. I actually killed him, just to see what happens. And yeah, if one Covenant member dies, that's it. The host wins. The host only needs to kill 1, so that's 1 mystery solved. Now, defeating players as a Covenant member rewards you with a Filianor Spear Ornament, and you can use these just outside the church at the Divine Spear Monument. Here you can offer them to rank up within the Covenant. Once you offer 30, you get a Divine Spear Fragment, which I think is the better version of the one I already had, the Ritual Spear Fragment. All those lightning spears thrust up out the ground and they linger there. The hitbox stays for a while, you can't just walk over them. And it can only be used online when in PvP, but it's great for suppressing players, controlling the space around you and breaking up co-op groups. You'll have noticed the glowing lightning orbs that appear around my head periodically. I'm not casting them, they are automatically casted every so often. But a really cool thing is that they are summoned much faster against more players, and much slower if there's only 1. So against a huge co-op group, let's say 3 or 4 players, the spell will automatically cast itself every 10 seconds or so. But against one single host, well, that would be quite unfair, it'll activate much slower. It's a great mechanic. Stuff like this makes the Covenant feel surprisingly well balanced, I would say. It really was the most enjoyable PvP I've had in ages. Now, I messaged these guys after they ruined me as well, and just asked them what their thoughts on this boss invasion mechanic was, because at this point I was just wondering how other people were finding it. Deep1205 doesn't know Ing, and Destigor can't beat the boss that gives you access to this Covenant. Actually, that is something I've been hearing a lot. Yeah, the optional boss is challenging. Definitely took me a while to figure out a strategy, but that'll be coming in another video quite soon. I was trying to think of things that other people might have wanted to know. I did check whether you could change your appearance once you've been summoned in, by the way. Looks like you can indeed. I used the white ring and the dark ring. All worked fine, if you're into that. Now, if you're curious as to what it looks like from the host perspective, by the way, at one point I invaded this host who didn't really seem to know what was going on. I killed him so fast that I asked him if I'd caught him by surprise. I was basically wondering if he thought I was a player or not. Anyway, we got talking and I ended up helping him through the fight instead, just because he couldn't beat it. And as you can see, this is from a white summon's perspective now. We're hitting the boss, the Church Covenant player, and he's taking vastly reduced damage from our attacks. Look at this, a fully charged overhead slam from my Great Hammer does only about 500 damage, so that gives you an idea. I think it's good though, because it is supposed to be a boss. If you could stun lock and kill them in 2 or 3 hits, it would be underwhelming and not fun for any side, really. A great Covenant, well implemented into the game, seemed to actually work as intended. I definitely recommend trying it out now though, because now is the time where most players will be going through that area. If you're looking for some more content to watch, our blind playthrough of the previous DLC, Ashes of Ariandel, is now fully uploaded. Here's a little preview.
Oh man, this looks awesome.
I can put my head in the fog wall.
Oh man.
How does that feel, Dave?
What's he doing up here?
It's like being in a smoke machine.
It looks like he's holding a lard vessel.
Hey Dave, you want to get high?
Alright, you guys ready?
Yeah, man.
The first part is on my channel, second part on Dave's, and third part on Steve's, so check them out. And meanwhile, I need to stop playing this DLC so damn much. My final exams are really soon. Ugh. Alright, thanks for watching. I'll see you in a little bit.